Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel, and if you're new, hit the subscribe button down below. And don't forget to hit the bell either so you won't miss whenever we post. Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate that. Today's been kind of hectic because I've had my first day back at school from Christmas break and I had hip surgery a week ago, so I'm on a crutch, and that just isn't fun. High school isn't fun regardless, but when you add in a crutch, it makes it 10 times worse. Also, this is like our junk room where Riley's equipment gets stored, so just ignore all of this around me. This is the best place I have to film. Okay, before I get started, I just want to say that like all my respect goes out to jonbenet and her family, of course. It's an unsolved murder, so we have no clue what really happened. All we can do is just infer about the case and what information we have to gather a conclusion. And this is no disrespect to anyone at all in the family or anyone involved with this at all. I'm bad at this. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the morning of the murder, and then I'm going to go back over everything and kind of put up some parts that seem suspicious or why maybe this person was to blame or this person was to blame. We're going to take a look at like who could have done it and focus on them more so than the actual case. That makes sense. I have an extensive timeline, but if I went through that timeline, y'all would be very bored. On December 26, 1996, at around 5:30 a.m., Patsy Ramsey finds a 2.5-page long ransom note demanding $118,000. She finds this on a back staircase within the house, not outside. They say that if the Ramseys call the police, that it'll automatically result in jonbenet's murder. Without hesitation, the parents call the police, and the police don't see really any instance of why they should search the home. But they do tell John, and I think it's his friend, I'm not sure. We're just gonna say they tell John to go search, and John goes immediately to where jonbenet's body is found and gets her and carries her upstairs. At around 10:45 that night, her body is given to the coroner staff. So that's the cold hard facts of the day of jonbenet's death. Now, looking forward into the future, the police of course take DNA and all that from the family, but the course of this case seems to go on a very long time, and John and Patsy do a lot of interviews in the public stating that they're innocent and that any idea that the family members have done it is crazy to them, and they don't see how a family member could have done it. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the different people who could have done it and like theories about like the evidence, and I'm going to use some of the timeline that I have configured up to back up why this person could have done it. Patsy Ramsey, the mother. Okay, the first theory is that jonbenet had wet the bed, and this was a recurring theme for jonbenet, and they say that her mother just flipped a switch and slammed jonbenet's head into a hard surface, maybe like a sink or a bathtub or the wall, something like that of the sort. Secondly, jonbenet was found with a rope tied around her neck, tightened by a homemade garrote that seemed to have been fashioned out of a paintbrush. Patsy Ramsey had a paint kit that was laying nearby. Third is the ransom note. This ransom note was 2.5 pages, and it came from paper within their house. So, one, who has time to kill someone in the house without anybody waking up? Two, who has time to write a 2.5-page ransom note and kill someone while they're at it? It's also weird that the note demanded $118,000 by 10 a.m. the following day, but the Ramseys seemed to not care anything about it. The note also said to not call the police or jonbenet would be found dead. They called the police without hesitation. So it seems as if they weren't really taking the ransom note seriously, which would only make sense if they had something to do with it. And I'm not saying they did, but like, it doesn't like logically make sense of the decisions they would make unless they had something to do with it. The ransom note was written with Patsy stationery with her pen. The handwriting analysis came back inconclusive for Patsy, but it was stated that it was not John's handwriting. And throughout the years following JonBenet Ramsey's death, they did a lot of press and, like, of course, were questioned a lot. And she always appeared extremely defensive against it, and she even lashed out on somebody on Larry King Live. However, family and friends have completely denied that she would have ever laid a hand on JonBenet. I don't think anybody's gonna look at any mother and be like, yeah, she would totally hurt her kid, unless that mother's just like not a good mom. But in the sense of a regular person, any regular person can lash out at any time. We've seen it happen on the news a lot. We've seen like stories of it. So like, it was not that far-fetched. And while I'm not going to give my opinion, there is a lot of things that point to the fact that Patsy Ramsey could have done this. We're going to move on to John Ramsey, the father of JonBenet. There's not a lot of speculation about like weird things that he did, except for the same things as the mother, for the fact that like they let 10 a.m. slide past without mentioning the $180,000 that they had to give for the ransom note, and the fact that like it was in their house. Also the fact that it was snowy, there was snow on the ground outside, and there was no footprints outside in the snow, and there was no like sign of forced entry or anything like that within the house. The only other suspicious thing that John did that Patsy did not do was whenever the police told him to look for the body, he went straight to where it was. And when he got it, instead of doing what the police told him to do, which was leave it the way it is, leave everything the way you see it, don't touch anything, he still picked her up, carried her upstairs, took duct tape off her mouth, and covered her with a sheet. Now, this feeling can of course go to the fact that he's grieving. Of course, you know, you're seeing your kid dead. I can not imagine seeing that, so I don't know how I would react. Nobody knows how they would react, so you don't know if you would pick them up or not. But all we know is that he did something he wasn't supposed to do, and he did destroy vital evidence, and that plus everything else does make him and Patsy look very, very suspicious. Aren't a detective, I don't know if I pronounced that name right, sorry if I didn't, but a detective that was working on the case said that she felt when she was kneeling next to the body with John beside, like on the other side near her, she felt as if there was a murderer in the house, and she remembered privately like counting the bullets in her gun to make sure, just in case she had to use one. Again, that doesn't really prove anything, but it is an intuition, and a lot of the times our gut feeling is right. And with her being a detective, she probably profiled many killers before, so you kind of like look at that and be like, oh yeah, that is suspicious. Also that morning, a detective overheard John Ramsey arranging flights to Atlanta, which is of course suspicious. And John Ramsey did admit to this, saying that like they had always wanted to go back home. They just wanted to go back and visit their family, and that's where they were from. That's where they lived for 25 years, which is also kind of suspicious, but it's not really enough to make you be like, oh yeah, he definitely killed her. Now moving on to Burke, the 9-year-old son at the time. John and Patsy Ramsey shielded Burke from the press for years after the murder, and judging by his very recent, very strange interview with Dr. Phil, it was a good idea. Burke sat through the interview with Dr. Phil, and he like grinned and creepily grinned, and that's just not the right reaction you should have. I mean, I get it's not like a typical everyday interview and like it's going to be kind of awkward, but I wouldn't think you'd be smiling through an interview about your little sister's murder. So of course that is sort of suspicious. That interview was done in 2008, soon after CBS aired The Case of JonBenet Ramsey, a 2-part documentary that reinvestigated the evidence of the crime. This included a group of FBI and forensic experts. This is a theory that the CBS team came up with. The autopsy of JonBenet revealed that she was hit with a perfectly rectangular blow. In the crime scene photos, there was a picture of a flashlight on a table on a kitchen counter, and it fit the right size to be the gash in her skull to protection. However, there was no trace evidence left on the flashlight, so of course there's that. That does not fit the theory, but anything can happen. They made up a scenario, and their scenario is that JonBenet had taken a slice of fruit from Burke's late night snack found on the dining room table. An undigested piece of pineapple was found in the child's stomach during autopsy. This piece of pineapple led him to strike her with a nearby flashlight out of anger. The wounds on JonBenet's back were consistent with the edges of one of Burke's toy train tracks. Burke might have tried to get a response out of JonBenet maybe with that. This is just a theory, and the pieces do fit together, but then again, it's not concrete at all. And the marks on her back were also previously assumed to be made from a stun gun. Burke shot back immediately after the special aired, his attorney claiming that the CBS perpetuated a fraud on its viewers, so they filed a lawsuit against CBS. The next suspect is the town drifter, otherwise known as Gary Oliva. I'm just going to call him Gary because I'm not correctly sure I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He was a 32-year-old known sex offender in Boulder, Colorado. And JonBenet was never confirmed to be sexual assault, but it could have been. It was a potential thing for them. Police allegedly found a magazine cutout of JonBenet Ramsey in his backpack after he was apprehended on drug charges in 2000. He was soon released, but of course the suspicions about him remained. The family's longtime private investigator, Ollie Gray, was sort of mad about the fact that the police focused more on the parents than they did him, because he was very suspicious. A high school friend of Gary's said that one night Gary called him on the phone and confessed to his longtime pal that he had hurt a little girl. And he was very distraught. Bell also released that the knot that was tied around JonBenet's neck was also similar to the knot where Gary had tried to choke his mom with a telephone cord. He, of course, was cleared by DNA testing of the murder, but he was recently charged with 2 counts of sexual exploitation of a child for possessing child pornography. The next suspect is the electrician. His name was Michael Helgoth, and he worked in a nearby auto salvage yard. He was tied to an alleged property dispute involving the Ramseys. While that isn't solid motivation, it could have been possible motivation for him to kidnap JonBenet and to seek revenge on the family. Officials did find a boot print similar to his around the Ramsey house. He committed suicide before anyone could come ask him these questions. His death occurred 2 days after a 1997 press conference announcing that the Boulder DA was zeroing in on a new suspect. He was cleared by DNA and death. So again, suspicious. The next suspect that we're going to look into is the school teacher. In 2006, a former school teacher, John Mark Kerr, confessed out of the blue to the 1996 strangulation of JonBenet and graphic sexual detail. He was arrested where he had been living on the lam after facing child pornography charges in the U.S. He was cleared when his DNA failed to match the profile of an unknown male found on the waistband of JonBenet's long johns. So again, no conclusive evidence. Carr's demented confession involved a series of diary entries allegedly written from the scene of the crime. In one dramatic account, Carr recalls strangling JonBenet in a love game gone wrong. "Close your pretty eyes, sweetheart," reads the expert. In which Carr repeatedly refers to himself as Daxus. "Daxus loves you so much. Oh God, I love you, JonBenet. And my lover's eyes are slowly closing." Wow, this is creepy. A bunch of people imagine these things, so it could easily be his imagination, and of course his DNA was not found. They could not actually arrest him. The housekeeper. Linda Hoffman had worked for the family as their housekeeper, and her husband Mervyn was their handyman, so it wasn't surprising that she was known to carry a key to the home. And during the investigation, Hoffman didn't even begin to fit the profile of the police were after. The police were after a white male, former convict, 25 to 30 years old. But she didn't hold back on voicing her suspicions that Patsy Ramsey had accidentally killed JonBenet. That said, Patsy claimed to investigators that Hoffman was struggling for money and had asked for a loan of several $1,000s, which Ramsey had declined. Policemen showed up at the housekeeper's home the night after the murder and asked the 57-year-old housekeeper to write the number $180,000 on a piece of paper, and reportedly took her fingerprints and several strands of her hair. She then testified in front of a grand jury for a total of 8 hours. She said a statement against Patsy stating that Patsy supposedly had multiple personalities. She'd be in a good mood and then be cranky. She got into arguments with JonBenet about wearing a dress or about a friend coming over. She had never seen Patsy so upset. A weird thing that I forgot to mention was that John Ramsey's holiday bonus was $180,000, which was what the ransom note asked for. Just a little bit sketchy. The housekeeper theory suggests that the housekeeper led JonBenet down into the basement because JonBenet probably obviously trusted her, and that night, in an attempt to trick her employers into leaving money for her ransom. It's possible that she saw like the bonus money, or they told her about the bonus money or whatever. The housekeeper was familiar with the home and the family's schedule, so it would have been easy for her to do this. And she did not have an alibi. She was asleep in bed while her husband allegedly slept on the couch. There is room to speculate that she could have been involved. So far, all evidence implicating her in the case is circumstantial. She has never been formally accused of this crime. I think she has less evidence than the rest of the ones we've talked about, especially the parents and the brother, but it's still possible. I guess suspicious suspect is the town Santa. Bill McReynolds, who's now dead, was a friend of the Ramseys who had dressed up as Santa Claus the week before JonBenet's murder to entertain the neighborhood children at one of the Patsy's famous Christmas gatherings. He was rumored to have paid a little bit too much attention to JonBenet. He was rumored to have chosen JonBenet to be his special friend, going as far to bring a vial of glitter that was gifted to him by JonBenet into heart surgery. Even stranger, he asked his wife to mix the gold glitter in with his ashes if he were to die. Seems pretty creepy to me. With that being said, we have looked at all of the suspects of the JonBenet case, at least all the presumed suspects. I mean, somebody could have killed her that wasn't on the list, but that doesn't seem likely. As for other information, the other information is basically a lot of the fact that they interviewed the parents a lot. I mean, Patsy was interviewed for 6.5 hours, but they didn't start interviews till 4 months after the murder, and it's a very long and drawn out case for something that should have been solved from the get-go. And if we're being honest here, it seems like everybody involved with this case could have been a little bit more prominent with what they were doing and a little bit more assertive with getting answers. But then again, the evidence was tampered not only once but twice, so anything that was legitimate that they had was easily destroyed. And as much as we as people on the outside looking in want to blame people that seem most likely to do it, we have no cold hard evidence that any of them did it, and it's not our place to rightfully accuse anybody. With that being said, out of all the theories that I said, and with all the evidence that we have, if you were to convict one of these people, tell me who would you convict in the comment section down below. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a wonderful week.